How's it going, guys, and welcome to the channel. My name is Josiah here at Island Fish Keeping, and today I'm going to be making a jungle for my cherry shrimp. So I'm going to start this build off with a tank that I already had set up. The first thing I'm going to do is add some old aqua soil that was already in the tank. Once I'm finished with that, I'm going to add some organic potting soil to help build the nutrient base for the plants. I've been loving the potting soil lately as it helps the plants grow really well. The next thing I'm going to do is add a layer of sand to cap off the soil so that it doesn't float off into the water column. Once I'm finished with the soil and the sand, I'm going to start adding the hardscape. I've already messed around with some ideas, and so what you're seeing is the results. Here in Hawaii, this wood is called kiave. It was originally brought to the Hawaiian Islands as a food source for the cattle that would graze these lands. They're pretty crazy looking trees, however they do have thorns, so you do have to watch out for that. For everyone else in mainland America, this tree is actually called mesquite, and I absolutely love it for my tanks. The reason I love kiave is because it's actually a really hard wood. It's so hard, in fact, that one time I went camping with some friends, and one of my friends used a machete, and he was going to actually chop down some of this stuff for a fire, and the wood didn't break, the machete did. So you live and you learn. That being said, though, the wood is great. I have some here in my fish tank, and the reason I love it is because it's not going to turn to mush in your fish tank. It's going to keep a really solid state, and so it won't disintegrate. It'll stay and it'll last a really long time, and then it can build like beneficial bacteria, and all kinds of small organisms feed on it, which then leads to bigger organisms like the plecos, the shrimp, and then just up the food chain. So it's a fantastic wood. I absolutely love it. Now I'm going to begin to add some lava rocks. If you've ever been to Hawaii, one of the things that you are sure to notice is that these are volcanic islands. That being said, there is an abundance of lava rock everywhere you look. That being said, these are all sticks and stones that I've collected here around the island myself. If you're intending to collect your own hardscape, make sure that the area where you're collecting from hasn't been sprayed with pesticides, as that can harm your tank. And now that I've got a finished design, I'm going to lock everything into place with some super glue. While the glue is setting, I'm going to grab some plants from beneath my main tank where I've been running some experiments. To prep the plants, I'm just going to give the roots a nice little trim so that the plants are stimulated into growing some new roots so that they settle into the tank nice and quickly. For the Anubias, I'm just going to wedge it into the cracks. You can super glue them, however I try to avoid that unless I really have to. After the Anubias, I'm going to plant some crypts into the foreground. This actually ended up being a mistake, and you'll see why later. Another mistake was this Amazon sword. It seemed like a great idea at the time, but little did I know how large it would actually get. With the tank all set up, I decided that it was time to add the inhabitants. I kept the shrimp in a container with the filter, and when I pulled the filter out, I noticed some of the shrimp were dead, so I thought it would be a good idea to get them out of that water as quickly as possible, which is why I added them to the new tank so quickly. It's now the next day, and I decided the tank still needed some more plants. This also involved stealing more plants from my jar downstairs. And here is the tank completed. With the tank all planted, I decided now would be a good time to pull out some of the wild colored shrimp just to keep the population nice and red. Only a couple days after I set the tank up, I noticed how quickly some of the plants are growing, and so I decided I would time lapse them over the next month so that you could actually see how fast they're growing for yourself. At this point, I decided it would be time for the first water change as the water is starting to get pretty stained, and I wanted to clear that up a bit. On this day, my friend gave me a new plant, and so I was super stoked to get to add this to the tank. On day 17, the Bacopa reached the top of the tank, and so I decided it would be the perfect opportunity to give the tank its first trim. After trimming all the Bacopa, I decided I wanted to keep it in the tank to create a more lush look, and so I just replanted it into the background. It was right around this point where I noticed how large the Amazon sword was actually getting, and so I started to think that it was probably a mistake planting it where I had. This is the first day that it was planted, and this is my dirted tank 1 month after it was fully planted. I would say overall the experiment was a success, however it did end up going a bit too well. But the plants look good and the shrimp are happy, so I'm happy. Thanks again for watching, guys. I had an amazing time building this tank. I hope you guys enjoyed watching and even learned a thing or two. This is my first video that I've ever made, so if you enjoyed, please like, subscribe, and stay tuned, guys. Hopefully there'll be a lot more to come.